You're listening to The Western Rookie, a hunting podcast full of tips, tricks, and strategies from seasoned Western hunters. There are plenty of opportunities out there. We just need to learn how to take on the challenges.
Hunting is completely different up there.
I've harvested 26 big game animals.
You can fool their eyes, but you can't fool their nose.
300 yards back to the road turned into 3 miles back the other way.
It's always cool seeing new hunters go and harvest an animal.
I don't know what to expect.
If there's anybody I want in the woods with me, it'll be you.
Looks like I need to turn off my OneDrive syncing. There we go. Boom. Perfect. All right. I just do a pretty short introduction and then we'll just dive right into it.
Sounds good.
Awesome. Welcome back to another Western Rookie podcast episode. This is your host, Brian Krebs, and today I have Aaron Hepler on the phone. I just got back from Colorado archery elk hunt, and we're trying to talking a little bit about it right before we started this podcast off, but both Aaron and I are Flatlanders. Maybe you might have a little bit more hills and smaller mountains where you're at, but I'm from Minnesota. You're from the East. Both places are a long ways from the West, and so I thought that'd be kind of a cool episode to kind of talk through on the Western Rookie, because so many of our listeners are from either the Midwest or the East, and they're looking at like, what goes into a Western hunt? Where do I start? How do I get there? Travel plans, picking a state, picking a unit, all of those things, and you and I are kind of on the same page as far as all that goes, and so it's going to be a pretty great episode, and that's why I wanted to have you on, Aaron.
Yeah, I think it's probably a really good topic for both. Like you said, we're Flatlanders. I'm not. Well, I do have some rolling hills around here, but I think this is a perfect topic because it's definitely fresh in my mind. I went on my first actual Western hunt last year. So,
and is that the elk that's over your shoulder there?
Yeah, that's him.
That's a beauty.
Yeah, I was pretty excited, but
yeah,
there were a lot of things that went into to picking a hunt like that, and I think we'll dive into the weeds on that. So,
yeah. So for the listeners, you showed a picture you got a European mount of a beautiful 6x6 bull, plenty mature. I think everybody from the East would probably shoot that bull, unless it's a once in a lifetime unit in Arizona potentially, but it's a great bull. So that's the credibility piece, right? So, but for the listeners, I mean, you grew up hunting and fishing, I assume, just like most people.
Yep. I'm 35 and I've been hunting. I mean, fishing my entire life and hunting since I've been 12, because that's when you can start hunting in PA. So,
yeah, perfect. So, just like me, fished my entire life. I maybe started hunting a little bit earlier. I think my dad let me shoot a doe at 11.
Yeah,
you could do like a sponsorship hunt or something like that, mentor hunt. Started pheasant. I think I shot my first pheasant on my 12th birthday.
Nice.
And then I didn't really start Western hunting until after college. I mean, it just wasn't feasible.
Right.
For a while, it's like you can't bring a 14-year-old on an elk hunt. Right. I mean, you can. People do it. I'm sure now that I said that, I'm going to get a ton of emails and DMs like, oh, I bring my 9-year-old. And we had Sean Curtis on the phone. He brings his entire family for opening weekend archery elk. And he shot a bull with his infant child in a backpack harness. So
that's no simple feat there.
No, right. But when you're coming from the East, like, all right, it's like, thousands of dollars between tags, gas, money. If you're going guided, way more. And now we're going to do this for someone that's just like barely a hunter yet, like 12 or 15. Right. It's a little different. It's a little different coming out East. So I didn't start, once I got old enough, then I'm busy with sports. I'm busy with high school, graduation, college. It's really hard to skip Calc 3 for 10 days. And so I didn't go until I started my career. So I think this marks the 8th or 9th elk hunt I've done. So
okay,
16, 17, 18, 19, everyone's going to watch me count on my fingers. 20, 21, 22, 23, 8. Yeah, 9, because I did 2 in 2019. So I've done 9 elk hunts, one by one, all the way through. I'm at 2 for 9. That's my odds.
You're almost not a rookie anymore, I guess, huh?
I'm barely out of the rookie status enough to host the Western Rookie podcast.
Perfect.
I'm close enough that I can jump on either side of the fence and not be a complete hypocrite, right?
Exactly.
So we just did one with Jason Phelps, and it's like, all right, I'm jumping on the rookie side of the fence for this conversation.
Right.
And then I did one with a buddy who I took him on his very first ever hunt west of the Missouri.
Mm-hmm.
And so then I kind of dive off on the other side and, you know, play the mentor role too. So yeah, I'm not fresh out, but I'm also, like I said, I'm 2 for 9 on elk, which is 22.5%
That's
success rate.
Yeah.
Which it's good, except for the fact that both hunts were back to back. There were rifle hunts, and so then I'm 0 for 7 with my bow.
Okay.
Which really.
Now, are you hunting like the same area every time you've gone, or are you checking out new stuff?
We are back. Sorry about that, guys. We had a brief technical issue. That is the name of the game of podcasting. My podcast board had an error, so we paused quick and got it all back up and running. But yeah, we're talking just about how, tenure with elk hunting, 2 for 9 doesn't sound that bad. But when you break it down, 2 for 3 on rifle hunts, 0 for 6 on archery, and then we're talking about like units, and that plays a huge role in it too. So the other part that I feel that adds into it, one of my rifle tags was a once in a lifetime in North Dakota. So phenomenal unit, 50% success rates, giant bulls, shot a beautiful bull. The next year, I went to buy a Colorado point, noticed I had 5. So I bought one. Next year, I went to buy the second, and I had 5. It was right when they transitioned their system. So we had issues with our elk group that year. We were trying to go to Wyoming. We had 7. The group app is 6. Limit is 6. I was in a wedding during one of my best friends was getting married during elk season. So everything together, I'm just well, he doesn't hunt, so So I everything put together, I'm like, hey, you know what? This is just kind of all the cards are aligning for me to just do a rifle Colorado hunt, burn these 5 points before they find out they gave them to me, and then that alleviates the wedding and the group party size issues. And so that was another. 5-point unit in Colorado is not amazing, but it's certainly better than over-the-counter Colorado.
Oh, yeah.
And so I shot at a 6x7 in that unit. Then we did General Montana with a rifle a couple years later. We went 2 for 5 in the group, but I didn't personally shoot anything past like a 640-yard shot at a raghorn, but that's just too far for me. And so then the archery, I've been close. Every year I've had an elk within 60 yards. Every single year I've had a legal elk within 60 yards. And I've sent one arrow, and the arrow hit a branch like 2 inches in front of my rest that I couldn't see through my sight housing, and my brother ended up shooting that elk after my arrow went off the side of the mountain. So when you start to break it all down, it's like, 2 for 9 is not good, but when you consider those 2 were in pretty unique situations and the other 7 hunts are the general units, you kind of start to get defeated. And part of it is, like you said, we bounce around a lot of units. I've hunted 3 different units in Montana. I've hunted 2 different units in Colorado. I've hunted I've only hunted our favorite unit is Wyoming, and I've actually hunted it once. And so, we bounce around quite a bit, and that doesn't, I think immediately it hurts. Long-term, it probably helps.
Okay. Because you're learning elk better?
I think you're forced to learn elk faster. I think you're forced to develop tactics that allow you to be more adaptable faster. And I think the extreme example of this, and you'll probably appreciate this if you hunt the same ground in Pennsylvania for whitetails every year, you've got your stands, right?
Yeah.
And you just go sit in your stand. Sometimes they walk by, sometimes they don't, but where are you going next time? The same stand.
Yeah.
And it's because you're so familiar with that piece, you almost refuse to adapt, right? Because maybe you had a picture of the buck in that spot in July or last year, or for 10 years, Dad shot a buck in this stand every year, so it's a good stand. And sometimes that's true in the whitetail woods, but it's so easy to go just keep doing the same thing when you're in the same spot. And so I think when you're out elk hunting, it certainly helps to know a spot. Mm-hmm. But it sometimes doesn't help you learn new skills as an elk hunter because you're just relying on the things that you did last time that worked.
Yeah.
And if it doesn't work, you're like, well, maybe it was just an off day. I'll do it again. And now all of a sudden you waste 2 or 3 days before you start to adapt versus going to a new spot. You're like, I didn't see any fresh sign within the last week. We're going to a different spot tomorrow.
Right.
You know, and I
Yeah,
think
I
that's
think
kind of that long-term, short-term trade-off.
I think that's one thing that if you're an Eastern hunter, I think I mean, what you have to practice on is whitetails, right?
Yeah.
So exactly what you're saying is not what I do because I can't hunt that way. Like I grew up hunting. I have a farm that I hunt. It's a good family friend of mine, and we have stands. I mean, we've rotated stands or moved stands because the deer started, moving their shifting, however.
Mhm.
And I'll shoot. I shot a lot of deer out of the same stand during rifle hunting. But when I really started like diving into public land hunting on my own, I I have areas that I hunt, but I almost never hunt the same spot. Like I will sit the same tree one. I'll only sit a tree one time in an entire season, and I think that's another part of importance of whitetails is that's different really with elk is you don't really use trail cameras for elk. I mean you can, but
Yeah.
a lot of states, well, A, they don't allow it, and
Yeah.
B, I think if you're relying on as far as whitetail hunting goes, if you're relying on your cameras only, you're never learning like you said, you're never learning anything new, like what new food is in. Like, I mean, you can see the sign and stuff anywhere you go, but like, well, this year, there's berries. This year, like this year right now, there is acorns everywhere.
Mm.
Not, it hasn't really been like this for a couple of years now, so everything's really different. So I think that you always have to keep learning. And if you're just putting your trail cameras on the same tree every year and hunting it because you saw a buck there and not really trying to figure out what he's doing outside that, you're hurting yourself. But if you're really adapting to the changing situation with whitetails, it's not the same as elk because it's the hunting is very different. They're two different animals, but you can learn to adapt faster that way. So I agree with you with how hunting a new unit can really teach you how the animal is using the landscape versus like this is how this landscape plays out.
Yeah, exactly. And when I said that, I meant, I've grown up with private farms my entire life. I mean,
Yeah,
we've probably got exclusive access to a few hundred acres, whether it's like in my last name, like that
yeah,
size family, or in the next umbrella up. And then we
right,
probably have partial access to equally that much, still within the family, just like cousins.
sure.
But very blessed. Lots of good opportunity. Me and my wife just bought our own 40 here that we live on now
Oh wow.
too. And so like that's what I meant was like you got your food plot, you got your stand. Like my favorite tree, that stand hasn't moved
Yeah,
since I started bow hunting.
yeah, 100%. And I think sometimes when people that have like a back 40 or something like that, or like a farm like you're talking about, is it doesn't matter if you're hunting 10 acres or if you're hunting 10,000 acres. You might have to do something a little bit different based on whatever you're hunting.
Right.
So, like I have a stand that I hunt every year. There's one stand that I like to go to because the deer haven't changed pattern, but I think it's like it goes with anything, right? Like I'm sure you like to fish. I like to fish. If you just if you're fishing the same point again and again and again, and all of a sudden now you're not catching any fish, like you got to figure out where they went,
Yeah.
and it could be because you're putting the pressure on them, or it could be because like, maybe a waves made a new rock hump on it or something, a tree fell in the water, whatever it is, like you got to
Right.
change your situation and figure out what the fish are doing and not necessarily the landscape alone.
Yeah, the one hack that I do think is kind of universal, and it really doesn't have as much to do with hunting as it does like mountaineering. When you're
Yeah.
changing units, it almost takes a full day or 2 days to figure out where the roads are, figure out where the access points are, the trailheads, where are the hiking trails, where are good looking valleys and units. And I'm
Yeah.
talking like we don't hunt from the truck at all. I mean, we spiked out we slept on the mountain this year,
Right.
a one night, and but we definitely do ride a ridge or top road, and we'll look for 1 to 10 miles in and say, yeah, that looks good, like we should get in there. But to
Yeah.
do all that, you got to spend time on these roads, and the roads always suck, and you're driving around. But that's like a one-time activity, right? You do that for 2 years, for 2 days. Now you have the roads and the trails kind of down pat. You have bigger areas. Now you need to get in there and pick them apart and look for sign, look for, hear bugles and stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
But then also part of going back to the same unit is you start to learn little hacks. Like, hey, if we just dive off the left side of this ridge versus the right side of this ridge, there's no deadfall. We get in and out easier. We save time. We save, stuff like that. That comes with building longevity of experience in a unit. Going back to this, like there's one unit we've hunted 2 or 3 times now. Actually 2 places we've hunted multiple times, and we know where the roads are, so we don't even worry about that. And now we're starting to really get to that next level of understanding easy access routes. Like that's a big one whitetail hunters always talk about, and it's mostly with scent and pressure. But with elk hunting, it's like, yeah, that's a great unit, but we kill ourselves every time we go in there. We need to figure out a better way to go in there. Like I would rather walk 3 miles on a green slope trail than 1 mile on a red slope trail, because that 1 mile out is going to kill me. And that green, I won't even notice it on the green. It'll probably be faster on the green as well. And that comes with hunting the unit a long time. And then you get into like, where are the elk this year? What valleys are they using today? And that just comes with, that's the hunting side of it, where you just got to be a good elk hunter and be adaptable.
Yeah. I think it's probably hard for like an over-the-counter situation to like, I guess, people will go and they'll say like, well, I didn't even hear, now I didn't see a track, I didn't see so you have to be where the elk are. So that is, if you're doing the over-counter thing, like it would be helpful to go back to the same area to just kind of figure out where do they even like to go here.
Yeah, that's tough.
A lot of it has to do with hunting pressure too, obviously, in that situation.
Right. I mean, we've got a group of about 8. Usually we fluctuate between 6 and 8 archery elk hunters in our group. The group has been happening every single year since 2015. I didn't go the first year. And our group is, oh man, I think we're in double-digit bulls.
Nice.
So you start adding up all that experience. It's like, we don't go anywhere now and not see sign.
Right.
But we're new spots. We're adaptable. We kind of know what we're looking for. We're looking for dark timber, black timber. We're looking for a third of the way from the ridge line, a third of the way down the mountain, 2/3 from the valley.
Yep. There's
going to be traffic in these areas, away from roads, away from pressure, food, water security, like it's a triangle. And then we can piece that together. But that being said, like my brother didn't see an elk. He's killed 4 with his bow. We have a little elk rating on our team. He's an E7 because he shot 3 with his bow, or 3 with a rifle and 4 with his bow. And he's like, I didn't see an elk this trip. We got into bugling most days. We heard elk. We saw fresh shine. I saw 19. He didn't see any. So sometimes even when you're in the elk, you don't see one sometimes in the black timber.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, I agree. And are you mostly doing like over-the-counter type stuff?
We like to go every year, and we like a spot in Wyoming, but the Wyoming General is every 3, and now it's moving into every 4 years. Yeah. So then we had to start going to Montana. We picked a spot in Montana. We absolutely hated it. Steeper than shit, super thick. We only had encounters with 6 elk the whole week, and we just decided, not worth it. Then we went to another place in Montana, had better luck. We went 2 for 4 the first time we went there, but there's grizzly bears, and it's not like there might be a grizzly bear. There's a lot of grizzly bears.
Oh, that's not fun.
So we're like, no. We've gone back there twice. We're probably going back next year. But the plan was we'll go to Montana. It'll be like Montana, Wyoming. Montana, Wyoming. Well, now Wyoming is every 4 years, and now Montana isn't even a guarantee at 2 points for their general tag. So now it's like, all right, Wyoming, Montana, something else, Montana, something else, Wyoming.
Yeah.
And that something else is what we're struggling with. Last year it was over-the-counter Colorado, but Colorado has their muzzleloader season right before peak archery.
Right.
So that's tough. This year we did a point unit in a low point unit in Colorado. Still have the same, a little bit less pressure, but there's still muzzleloader pressure the week before. They weren't super vocal. We might have gone a little too early for Southern United States. I don't know. But it all just adds up. And so it's like we would love to go to an over-the-counter unit or a general unit every single year, like the general unit in Wyoming. We would never go anywhere else. We love that spot so much.
Yeah.
But we can't draw it. So we're stuck doing that. And what does that look like? Is it New Mexico? Is it random draws in Wyoming? And our group uses Go Hunt religiously. I mean, that's how we're finding every unit we ever hunt is Go Hunt. We look up herd populations, draw odds, pressure. Now we're using Go Hunt maps and 3D to get a gauge on how steep is the unit. Because we've got people that range from billy goats to boats on our team. I'm on the boat side of the equation. I mean, I'm just not a fast mover.
Yeah.
And so it's tough. It's hard to find something you can do every year if you're not going basically over the counter Colorado. But then you really need to get in there. You need to spend time there. You need to go back year after year to figure out the unit and overcome all the challenges that Colorado has, like pressure, season dates, topography. Yeah. I mean, there's a lot of things.
Yeah, and I mean, you could do Idaho, but they have that different, like you can't apply as a group there anymore. So
that's something we need to look into because one guy in our group has hunted Idaho, and he said you can apply for weighting as a group. I'm not quite sure. We need to look into it, but yeah, that's a big concern. If you can't do it as a group,
there's a back door.
Yeah,
I'll tell you about it then.
Yeah, we gotta figure that out. And it's also in December, so you kind of, if you're gonna go to Idaho, you make a hard commitment to go to Idaho. It's not a backup plan; it's a pre-plan.
Right. I write a little bit for Exodus Trail Cameras, and actually Chad Sylvester.
Okay.
He's the owner of Exodus. He's out there. I don't know if he's back yet or not, but he texted me last week. He's out there, and they actually drew. I think it's 4 or 5 in their group that are going, and they all drew the same tag, and so I think they took like whatever it is, like 4% of the tags in that unit.
Oh, really?
Yeah. So they kind of figured out a way to all be able to draw together.
Yeah, and it's all over the counter. But Idaho's, I mean, so I'm going to go on a little rabbit hole vendetta. So Steven Ranella on Meat Eater has said one of his ideas for retirement, like his golden years pet project, would be going around all the states and just commonizing the Blaze Orange requirements. Are we wearing hats? Are we wearing vests? Are we doing both? Are we doing none? I really don't care. I just want them all to be the same. That's what he said. I would like to go through every state and say, hey, I'm going to bring your guys' website up to the 21st century here because they all suck. Every single one of them sucks.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, you can't. Dude, I talk about that all the time because you can't find specific details. Like,
can't find details. You have to like look up arbitrary numbers to log in. It's like, why can't I just make a login? Like, emails are already unique. You can't have the same email on 2 different people.
Right. And there's like, for example, one pet peeve of mine is like in PA, it doesn't say so we have a pretty long black bear season in the fall. And it doesn't say if you can or you can't pack a bear out of the woods. But they want bear shot. So there's people that will hunt close enough to a truck that or private land or whatever can get the bear out. But if I'm going to go 2 miles into the woods, I'm not packing out a bear that's I'm not dragging a bear that's over 200 pounds. There's no way I'm doing that. Now, I actually contacted the Game Commission and say, hey, this is like, if you look in the book, it looks like you can field dress a bear and then you have to bring it to the check station. It doesn't say if it has to be intact or whatever it is. So I ended up like contacting like one of the heads of the Game Commission. And he was like, well, yeah, you can pack a bear out. And I'm like, well, I talked to a game officer before. He told me that I couldn't. And he's like, no, you absolutely can. It has to have like, you have to have the skull. You have to have, you wouldn't get a live weight, obviously, but you have to have this. Basically, you can leave the spinal cord and the rib cage.
Yeah.
and you can pack out the rest. However, there's no actual law for what you can or can't do. So I carry that when I'm bear hunting. I carry that email in my pocket because I know somebody's going to give me a hard time.
Right, and it's not on the website. And it's
Right.
the same with these apps and these systems of like Colorado. It's like the number for the unit, and then the number for the tag type, and then the number for something else, and then there's a letter for the sex, and it's like, Jesus, like you gotta look all this like, come on. I go on my Go Hunt membership, and they've got every transaction I've ever made with them, everything I've ever ordered from them, every date I've ever bought anything, and all I do is sign in, and Google just signs in for me.
Yeah,
I just go to the website and they're like, oh, hey, Brian, how you doing? Like, why can't that be how you apply for a tag? Like, oh, hey, Brian, we noticed it's, April, and for the last 20 years, you've been going to the same over-the-counter unit in Colorado. Would you like to go again this year? Yeah, sure. Click, done.
Right.
And so that would be my pet peeve.
Right. I get not every state agency can, share a common website, but, things like orange requirements would be kind of nice because,
Well, the reason I went on
this much,
the reason I went on this tangent is because there's a lot of stories out there in Idaho where a guy will be there at 7:59 and he's clicking refresh, 8 o'clock, boom, he's in, he clicks buy, website crashes. And he's like, well, what the heck? And then someone logs in at 8:37 and like, oh, hey, there's tags left because the website's back up. That guy still crashed and locked out. The other guy gets a tag. He's like, what the hell? I was here on time. And this guy slept in, and he got and so that's what I'm saying with these whole ancient websites. They crash all the time. There's always issues with the application didn't work, or we crashed, or a bunch of people didn't draw that were supposed to draw, so now we got to give them tags to make everyone happy. But then we're 2,000 tags in surplus that we weren't supposed to give out.
Right.
It's all these issues, and so I would love to revise and optimize the draw system. I would have every state, if they couldn't get along and if they couldn't play nice and just pick their dates, I would say, all right, then we're doing it a different way. You're going to bid on your place in line. Whoever bids the most and puts it into this, side pot that I manage for free, and it all goes to wildlife on a federal level, so no one can complain. But we're going to bid, and whoever pays the most gets to be first. And your app opens on January 1st. It closes on the 15th. Results are on the 21st. The next state is the 21st. It closed, you know what I mean? And it's so that way and you're like, oh, didn't get anything in Arizona. Let's do New Mexico. Oh, didn't get anything in New Mexico. Let's go to Wyoming. But now you have Wyoming, where non-residents have to apply by the 31st of January, and we don't find out until the 31st of May. So we basically have this big question mark out there the entire app season of, should I apply for anywhere else? What if I don't get drawn? And it's just silly. I feel like every state would see an increase in app dollars, which goes towards their fundraising, right? Because you don't get a refund on your app, whether it's $5 or $50.
Right. Well, and PA sucks for that too, because we have a small huntable elk population, and you can either just like anywhere, you can just buy a preference point for the year, not plan on applying, so you're not going to get drawn. Which you basically, if you plan an elk hunt anywhere else, you basically have to do that, because now they made it a little bit better this year, but you can apply in February, and then the draw is this year was July 31st.
Mm-hmm.
So if you draw and you have an elk, PA is a one, you're probably not going to draw an elk tag in PA again. And,
is it?
It's
legally once in a life?
No, you could draw a second. There's people that have drawn a second time because it's a random draw. You just have to wait. There's a 5-year wait period after you draw once.
Gotcha. Yeah.
For a bull. But if you basically if you can either put your name back in the hat and say, hopefully I draw next year, but you could wait another 10 years to draw. You never know.
Yeah. Well, draw strategies, lottery systems, that would be, what I've already described would be a pipe dream. But if we could commonize every state, so New Mexico, no point system.
just
Yeah.
straight odds. Idaho, mostly over the counter, but where it's not, it's just straight odds. Colorado, pure preference, no random, no bonus. Montana, pretty much pure bonus. You have to draw your general, and then after that, it's bonus. So what the guy with 1 point could draw, or the guy with 20 years and 401 points could draw.
Yeah.
And then Wyoming is like the both option, where you have preference, but 25% of the tags are in a random bucket.
Right.
It's just like bonkers. Like how?
Yeah, PA system is not terrific, but I kind of like it because I think, like the guy that's put in for the first year could draw, or like you said, the guy that's been doing it for 15 could draw.
I like systems that allow everyone a chance, but give a little bit of a tailwind to the people that have committed. And so that's why I like squaring bonus points.
Yeah. And
then I would probably do a cooler. A period, like a 5-year. I would probably designate, now we're talking like I'm the king of the world. But you look at a unit, and I would say like, okay, the game and fish, or the biologist, or whoever is in that agency for the state, I say, you guys come out with a plan, and you guys pick which units are opportunity units and which units are limited entry units.
Yeah.
Now let me know. And if it's a limited entry, if it's designated as a trophy management unit, then we're going to put a cooler on that. Like if you draw that on the bonus system, you can't draw again for 5 years or 10 years. Maybe maybe there's different scales. Like it's a 1st degree limited entry, so that's 5 years. But if it's like a 3rd degree limited entry, that's 15 years. Like you're not going to the northwest corner of Colorado every year because you got lucky.
Right. Yeah, I think that's a great idea.
And so, but if it's an over the counter, like if it's an opportunity unit, maybe that's just over the counter, or maybe that's just straight odds, no points. Some of them are going to be running 100% because they don't have enough apps. Some of them are going to be running 10% every year because they get more apps and they're on that verge of becoming an LE. But yeah, that would be awesome if you could commonize all of those things. I don't see a downside. I'm sure every state would say, well, this is why we can't do that. Well, if you hire my company to manage it for you, so you don't spend your own resources on it, you don't spend your own people on it, you're not on the hook if it crashes. It's not going to crash because you have tech people running it, not wildlife biologists running it.
Right.
Like there's so many things that are just so inefficient. Every state's going to see more apps because they can tell, like, I want to apply in New Mexico, Wyoming, and Montana. Well, great. They're all separate seasons, and you'll know the results of the first before the next is due.
Right, which is ideal.
Yeah, that's hard because some states don't allow refunds.
Right.
So
yeah, I don't know what direction you want this to go. We want to talk about you just got back from elk hunting, yeah?
Yeah, we got back. It was a new unit. We had Stephen Walker, who was a previous guest on this podcast, lives in the area. He hunted that unit quite a bit. I went shed hunting with him this spring. And so super nice person. One of the nicest people I've met in person through this podcast. He told us where we could camp. He told us places to hunt. He shared pins of where he shot bulls with friends. He's like, I don't hunt this personally anymore usually. If someone comes out, I might bring them there. But typically I'm going on the other side of the unit. We have mules. And so we go in like 10 miles. So I'll tell you everything. And we're like, great, so it's like, okay, it's a draw, so we get rid of some pressure.
Yeah.
We've got inside information. He showed up the first full day of hunting to hunt with us, and he brought me 2 sheds that he found. He's like, hey, I heard you bought a shop. You're talking about wanting to hang up a deadhead in your shop. This isn't a deadhead, but it's a match set. You can hang these up in your shop. And I'm like, dude, nice. You didn't have to do that. Came hunting with us. He was the one that called in the first bull of the trip to 58 yards. I just didn't quite have a shot. I could only see his like midsection and rear. I couldn't see the front shoulder. And it was 58 straight uphill, so it's probably more like a 75-yard shot, and that's just really far.
Yeah.
But yeah, so we got in. One thing I wasn't used to in Colorado is the daily rains. Where we were, it was basically daily rains, which really sucked. Like mid-afternoon, it just rained every day.
Yeah.
It was steeper than we thought it was going to be. It always is steeper than we think, but it was like steep. I've hunted some stuff that really isn't that bad. This was bad.
And the elk, of course, love to be right in the steep stuff. They'd find like a little bench, like a 4x8 sheet of plywood that's just flat enough to bed on, and that's where they were bedding. So we had to be in the steep stuff.
Yeah.
But yeah, we got on fresh sign relatively fast. I think everyone had we had at least a bugle or a play going every day, but it wasn't hot and heavy like everyone hopes it to be.
Yeah.
They didn't seem super call receptive, but they just got done getting pressured from both archery and muzzleloader. Muzzleloader ended like our first or second full day of hunting.
Yeah.
And so it was just a tough unit. We've been wanting to spike in and hunt for a long time, and the only guy that really brought it up and wants to do it the worst wasn't on this hunt. He went to Wyoming this year, and so we all did it kind of to spite him, like, we finally did it. And you're like, yeah, sure, you guys, you do it the year I'm gone. But that went really well. Everyone's gear performed pretty good on that.
Awesome.
It was a little heavier than I wanted to carry around all day, but water filters worked, tents worked. And so, yeah, it was just a really hard unit, and it's a far drive for us. And you're probably laughing like, oh, tell me about it, huh? Far drive from Minnesota? I'm over here by New York.
Yeah.
But yeah, it adds up though, because we were thinking about the way back. Everyone had to be back to work today. But if we were to hunt Friday and shoot something late Friday evening, which usually for our group, for whatever reason, it seems like it's always evening excitement, evening activity. Like we never really get anything going in the morning too much.
Really?
Yeah. To be fair, we're not like 2 miles in before the sun gets up either ever. So maybe that's why. But you start looking through it. It's like, okay, if we shoot something Friday evening, it's, Saturday morning at a minimum before we get the elk out. And then it's like Saturday afternoon by the time we get camp packed up and get out of there. And then it's basically 2 days of driving to get home. So we're in a position where we have to drive all night long, and people have to go to work on Monday with a 36-hour stretch of, being awake. And so
sounds like a 105-degree fever and can't go. Can't go to work.
Well, some people, I have flexibility. I have vacation. I could be, sick or whatever. Yeah. But some people, they're like, I pulled every string in the book just to be able to go. Like I can't do it again. We're just like, and we weren't on at that point. We kind of exhausted our best spot. We weren't really on hot. And so we all talked about like, if it was going nuts and it was screaming and we were having we just shot 2 today and we're having the best hunt ever, we roll the dice and pay the consequences of driving all night long. But man, they're just not going. We just spiked in for 2 days and hunted the third day in a row on the same spot. That was our best spot. It's, we were calling each other in because we were like, the sign was also localized that we ended up calling each other in twice.
Yeah.
And so we're just like, I don't know, we're kind of frustrated at that point. Everyone was ready for a bonfire and sleep in and hit the road.
Yeah, I'm sure. It gets that way towards the end of the week.
It does. It's, and we didn't take any off days. Sometimes we take like an off morning or an off afternoon, go to town, get a cheeseburger and a shower, come back out refreshed and recharged. But we didn't do that this year. We went basically 7.5 days straight. And then we're like, yep, I had a good hunt. And everyone on our team is like, I don't come out here and judge my success by the number of antlers we shoot. It's, time in the woods with buddies. It's really it's a friend thing. Yeah.
Most of it's just the experience.
Yeah. I mean, one guy shot at an elk. He had a great experience. They had 3 bulls working. One came in, he drew back. As he was drawn back, he's one of those people that he talked how he drops his pin into his target. A lot of target archers come down. I think a lot of bow hunters might just draw and put it where it needs to be, but target archery is very common to slowly drop your pin where it needs to be because it's so hard to lift your bow up, it seems. I don't know why.
Right.
And so as he was dropping it, he remembered his 40 pin just hit the back of the elk at 23 yards. And he would put his finger around on his trigger, but the elk walked out and saw him and did the whole, ugh! And it sounds like what happened is the elk went, ah! And he went, woo! And accidentally punched his trigger at the same time and sent his arrow right over its back.
Oh, no.
Yeah, just got startled, which happens. Everyone in our group has missed an elk except the new guy we brought this year. Well, then he's like, okay, I can recover. Grabs an arrow, knocks it, gets ready to draw, realizes it was a grouse arrow. So they threw that arrow down, got another, and just but they were in it. They were in it, and so he had a great experience.
That's awesome.
Yeah, I'm like, yeah, I don't know if I'm gonna be bringing grouse arrows anymore. I might bring a grouse tip and put it in my pack, but all the arrows in my quiver are gonna be elk killers.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean that's an easy mistake to make.
Yeah, especially when
you have in your quiver.
Yeah, I don't know. I pretty anal about my equipment. Like I always grab the best arrows in the front. That's the one I grab first.
Yeah,
I don't this time I'll grab this arrow.
Right, I'm the same way. I mean, all my arrows shoot the same, but I have the one that I want in front first.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm ready. I want to refletch all of my arrows. I just had Kyle Davidson from DCA Custom Archery on, who I think is actually out towards you. But he's got a patent on a new vane that he developed. And he is an R&D engineer for some Delta, I think. Delta,
nice.
Like consumer faucets and goods. But he did like all kinds of modeling and dynamics of like aerodynamic testing and radar simulation, and said like this is the best shape I could come up with lowest drag to guide your arrows. And I'm like, oh, perfect. I'm going to reflect that. But
nice.
But yeah, no, the elk hunt was good. It was fun. Great times as always, but it was tough. I made a couple of gear changes this year that I really liked. I don't have high performance rain gear. I have very bottom entry level rain gear. Yeah. And so it's heavy, it's thick, it doesn't breathe well despite being Gore-Tex. It's old. It's probably starting to be a little suspect on waterproofness.
Right.
And so I'm like, you know what? I'm going to ditch it. I'm not bringing it. I didn't carry it a single day despite all the rain. What I did instead was I brought the Alps Rainfly tent. I don't know if you've seen it. They're like basically 10 feet by 12 feet. You stake them down. You just crawl underneath it and ride out the storm.
Yep.
And I'm like, this is way better. It's half the weight. It's 100% effective. Like you do not get wet underneath it. And like 2 or 4 people can sit under it. So it works for like multiple people. It's like, why don't we just do this? And hey, I'll bring my Rainfly, you bring your backpack stove. We got equal weight. Neither one of us has to carry your rain gear. Now, the only thing it doesn't work for is if you want to hunt through like a just rainy day.
Right. Then
if you do that, you're going to get wet anyway. That's my opinion.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree.
So I made that
change.
Change.
How much rain gear you have, it's going to go down your hood or go down your sleeves or down whatever it is.
I just rocked gaiters.
Yeah.
Grass is a little wet, rock gaiters. My boots only got wet one day when we had to cross a river. One of our guys fell in it on the way out. So he had squishy boots and then he had to switch up. One of our guys crossed a down log that went like, here comes the river, hits a waterfall. Like right at the cusp of the waterfall, there's a log going across. And the waterfall is only like, I don't know, 12 feet in the air. So it would have been one hell of a jump, but you would have survived.
Right.
He walked right across that log. I'm like, okay, I'm not that risky. I'm going to go back up 100 yards where it's nice and flat. And got a couple pebbles to walk through.
Yeah.
So I did that version of it. But yeah, no, it went pretty well. All things considered, no major issues at all, really. Truck got a little hot pulling the trailer out there. But other than that, went off pretty much without a hitch. So we're all
That's great.
Kind of thinking about what next year looks like. I think we kind of all decided this isn't the unit for us.
Yeah.
Just value for input. It's so far, and we just didn't see. We saw more than we saw last year in over-the-counter Colorado, but just not enough to justify it's 19 hours Google Maps, but with the trailer in the mountains and rest stops, it turns into like 22 to 24 pretty fast.
Yeah. Yeah, last year when we went, we actually drove, we left at night. We left at like 8 p.m., drove through the night, and it was a 24-hour drive. I don't think I ever have to do that again. And the guys I went with were like, we don't ever have to drive through the night like that again. Like, oh, you only have to sleep one night, and then you're just 2 12-hour days, or whatever.
Yeah.
Like you said, by the time you're done, it's 13 hours or whatever. But
we've done both. We prefer to sleep, especially on the way out, I think. because you're gonna
Yeah.
be tired and exhausted all week anyway. The last thing we want to do is show up and we're already exhausted.
Yeah.
Like those other guys worked all day. We went out in 2 trucks. Our truck left earlier. We slept. The other truck left at like 5, drove straight through. So they got up, went to work, drove all night long, and then scouted and went to bed the evening of the next day and probably slept like shit too. So
Yeah.
they're up for 36 hours, and then we're going to start the hunt.
We actually got into town a day early. So we left at like 8 p.m. We got there at 6 p.m. the next day because, you know, it was 2 hours, 2 hours ahead or whatever, or behind. And
so then you slept before you really did anything.
yeah, we slept, and then we actually just kind of like nutsed around the next morning and went to the trailhead. So we actually did like one of the things is like a new elk hunter or new Western hunter. Do you know who Tony Peterson is? He writes for Meat Eater.
Oh,
he does all their whitetail stuff with Mark Kenyon.
Not personally for sure, but
so he actually does the Wired to Hunt podcast as well.
Okay.
But he was all like, I'm buddies with him, and he's always like, dude, you don't go on an elk hunt on your first like out of state trip. So, you know, I did whitetail hunting out of state and that kind of thing. And I've known him for I think it'll be 4 years now, and he's always given me pretty sound advice. Like, you know, he's no ropes. Like, he's written for every major hunting publication for a very, very long time. And you know, I always take his words, like, you know, as ultra importance when I'm thinking of this kind of thing. So I saved the elk hunt thing for a couple of years, and we planned more. We did the gear thing, and like, you know, we're all like, I'm an intensive care nurse, and I was planning on going with some of my friends from work. You know, one was in nurse practitioner school, and the other one's a physician's assistant, and one of them's actually a pulmonologist that we work with. So it's like, hey, like, some of them have limited time, and like, what's the best option to do? You know, what state would fit us the best? We kind of want to do we don't want to do straight DIY, but we actually ended up settling on not an over-the-counter unit. It was a draw unit, and so we planned it for a couple of years and did a drop camp, which is, you know,
for elk.
Yeah.
Okay.
They're pretty budget friendly. You know, like, I think it was like $8,000. We split it 4 ways, and the service is great, right? Like, you still have to have plenty of gear, but as far as like getting to where you're going, that's kind of already pre-planned. The guide service that we hired, they pack you in on horses, they drop you off at a camp that they have on public land, and, you know, text us when you get one, kind of thing. So you already have a pack out plan, because you don't, you know, so you get to carry a smaller pack, you don't have to do the whole. And I kind of would have liked to, if I ever did that particular hunt again, I would spike on I would bring stuff to spike a little bit further from our own camp. Cause we ended up like coming, like, I think it kind of makes you a little bit complacent, because you kind of stick to the camp. Like, we would come back and eat lunch, or, you know, like, that kind of thing. But I think for the doctor that we went with, like, he had 7 days, like, he could not get off longer than that.
Right.
And, you know, the other 3 of us could take, I think max I think one person could take 8 or 9 days. I think I took like 20 days off. I deer hunted when I got home. But, I think that it was like a really good experience for our first time out. The only one of us who had ever elk hunted before was the pulmonologist that we went with. He was in his mid 60s, so he's been elk hunting for a long time.
Yeah.
And, you know, he prefers like New Mexico, and he's hunted that a lot. But I think that it was a good, as far as a drop camp goes, I think it was a really good way to learn something, right? We still got to do, you know, still got to do it on our own, but we got, well, the guides don't put you where there's no elk. Like,
right.
They don't really tell you like, oh, hey, go hunt this spot and that's where you'll kill one. They're like, oh, you know, we've been kind of like this mountainside is an area they really prefer to graze, and then they'll give you hints like, hey, it was weird how they were. This area was a burn in I think 2019. And
what state was it, by the way?
It was in Colorado.
Colorado, okay.
Yeah, northern Colorado. It was burned in 2019 and 2021. And they said, like, really since that time, they'll come up to feed in the evening and go down to feed go down to feed in the evening and up to feed in the morning. It was kind of odd. Like,
oh, really?
Or they would go down to bed and up to feed instead of
yeah.
So, it was kind of weird how they were using thermals and stuff like that, but they helped you like, hey, like this area, they're coming up in the afternoon or going, whatever that, that kind of stuff. And like, hey, we've had guys have success in this area before. 2 weeks ago, we glassed this. Now we actually did there were a few reasons that we picked the dates that we did. One was, that first week of bow season, or the first, I guess, 2 weeks of the season there are archery, and then the second week is muzzleloader or whatever.
Yep.
And we ended up going the week after. It was I think we got there September 22nd, and we hunted till October 1st.
Oh, so you hunted fourth week of September, basically. Yeah.
So I had gotten advice from Tony that was like, hey man, like I've hunted Colorado all the different weeks of the season. I tend to like that week. The elk are still bugling and not a lot of people are hunting because it's not quite like the Jurassic Park that everybody dreams about when they go out there, like you still hear bugles, but you really have to like hunt them down after you find them, because then they're all with cows kind of thing,
Yeah.
But I thought the drop camp was a really good way to, A, it wasn't very expensive, and B, it kind of like shortened a learning curve. I don't know. They don't actually have their bow hunting percentages listed, but I think they had like a 25% rifle success rate.
Okay. Yeah.
So it wasn't, it wasn't too bad for a public land piece. And it was pretty remote. Like there's lots of public land everywhere in Colorado when you get on a big chunk, but it was a lot of room to move,
Yeah. And I suppose by doing the drop camp, you get away from a lot of pressure. I'm sure you guys weren't seeing terrible amounts of hunters back there.
We saw one headlamp in the middle of the night on like the fourth day of the hunt.
And in Colorado in September, like there's still a lot of non-consumptive users out there.
Right.
We saw hikers, bikers, mountain bikers, four-wheelers, loggers. We saw somebody cutting firewood. We saw construction workers, a lot of Jeeps just driving around. We did not see, I think one group ran into one group of hunters, but they were on the trail at the time. Like they were coming out the trail, we were going in the trail. We never saw anyone other than our own group while we were hunting.
So we did run into some hikers, but it was a wilderness area, so you couldn't, like, everything's primitive. Like if you go in there, they couldn't even bring a chainsaw in there. So they would, whenever they were,
you could probably bring like a pedal bike, but not an e-bike type of thing.
Right. Exactly.
Yeah.
And now we did see we saw hunting pressure around like the trailhead and the main roads that you could drive into on the public land. And some were mule deer hunting and stuff like that, but nothing back where we got into. And honestly, it really wasn't that far in. Like I think we were only 7 miles from the trailhead, but it was a lot of like you were up and over a ridge and then up and over the next one. So it was a pretty good hike. I would say the terrain isn't too bad, but we were hunting, our camp was at 11,000 feet and you're hunting mostly around 10.
Okay.
And that was hard for the first time out, right? Like
I've been up there twice and both times sucked. We were
you were short. Like if you got down around 9,000, it's not that bad. When you're at 10 and above, you are short of breath a lot. Especially, there's no way you can be as fit as, like I hit the gym a lot. You can be as fit as a fiddle, man, and there is nothing that prepares you for that.
Well, we have a guy in our group that has a degree in exercise science and physiology and kinesiology.
Yeah.
And he's like, there's something that physiologically changes in your body. Like your lungs physically change when you live in the altitude. And so like Stephen Walker, for example, he's not a small dude. Like he is 6'2", 6'3", like a full framed guy. You know, he's not a six pack, but he's definitely not overweight. I mean, he's just a guy, but he's a big guy, like big bone dude.
Yeah.
And he was putting everyone in our group to shame. And we have some guys that are like six pack, 140, 170, you know, billy goats compared to me. And the funny thing was we were hiking out and the trail was just brutal. So some of us that were going slower were taking lots of breaks. And the guy that fell in the river is like a billy goat.
Yeah.
And Stephen Walker was obviously a billy goat. And so the guy that fell in the river was like, hey, I'm just going to keep going because I'm not tired and my boots are soaked. I just want to get them off and start drying them out. And so Steven's like kind of like sitting there, like you can tell he wants to go, but he wants to be polite. And we're like, Steven, if you want to go, just go with him. And so Steven runs up the trail to catch up to the guy and then hikes with him. And the guy's like, yeah, I took one break because I needed to my lungs were burning. Steven didn't need a break. He just started talking.
Yeah. I mean, it's definitely like.
And it's because he lives there. His house is literally at 10,000 feet.
Right. It would actually take you probably, like medically, it would take you about 2 weeks to start changing your body to.
There's three, we've heard there's 3 phases. So the first phase is like 2 to 3 days.
Mm-hmm.
Like if you walk up to elevation or you drive up to elevation, that helps a lot. If you fly to elevation, you're screwed.
Yep.
So it's 2 to 3 days. Then you have like a 2-week window, but the physiological change that like is permanent is like 6 months or 3 months. It's like
your body actually doesn't start making more red blood cells for 2 weeks. So
so that's probably the intermediate one, and then there's probably something with like lung like efficiency, like oxygen transfer through your lungs to get to the red blood cells or something. But it's like 6 months out before you get that one. And Steven was like,
that's your VO2 max. So I did a lot of stuff on this.
So the VO2 max is the long-term one?
Well, you can start changing it right away, but that's when you'll notice the long-term effect of your VO2 max changing significantly for you to like live there is that amount of time.
Well, that's the funny thing is because Steven was like, I wish I could hike like I used to. I got COVID like a year ago or 6 months ago, and ever since then, I can't hike like I used to. I'm like, dude, you just hiked every one of us into the ground, and you didn't even break a sweat.
Yeah, that was one thing that I was always concerned about because, like, I didn't even really know that, you know, when we were starting out, like, oh yeah, I guess at altitude you might have some problems breathing. So the doctor, because he's a pulmonologist, he knew everything about this stuff. So he would like tell us.
Yeah.
And, you know, I worked with that guy for about 15 years in the intensive care. And, you know, he's like, well, you got to take, there's medicine you can take, you know, you can take Diamox to help you acclimate. And basically what happens when you're going to altitude is you have a contraction alkalosis. So this medicine actually kind of reverses that. And it helps you excrete different electrolytes through your urine to make it easier to breathe. A lot of people complain about the medicine and side effects. Like the 2 guys I was with waited to take it until we got there. You're supposed to take it like 3 days ahead of time for it to really make a difference. And they took it when we got into town. So 5,000 feet, they started taking it. And the next day we were at the trailhead at 10,000 feet. So the day after that, we're at 12,000 feet because that's when the guides horsed us in. And they're like, man, I don't feel good. This medicine's making me feel like crap. I'm like, well, you might have a little bit. That's
probably the altitude sickness.
You're probably a little bit of the altitude. They still, if they're going to hear me say this and be like, that's not true, you know. But I think it probably helped. I was still pretty short of breath. Like the first night that we stayed at we camped at the trailhead to wait for the guide.
Yeah.
And we drove into town on purpose so we could stay at 5,000 feet for like 16 hours before we went to the guide and, you know, so on and so forth.
So you're getting through that 2-day period or 3-day period a little bit faster.
Exactly. So, but I remember like sleeping in my tent and being like ultra short of breath, just rolling over in my sleeping bag. I'm like, man, I am so glad we're taking horses tomorrow because there's no way I could hike. But
Well, that's different though. I mean, like everyone can get short of breath when you're not used to the altitude.
Oh yeah,
And I get that.
you will get short of breath.
Yeah,
There's
you
like
take about like if you can run up an incline for 100 yards at home, you get 10 yards in the mountains. I mean, it's like, but I've never I've never had altitude sickness.
Yeah.
Like that's like a full on flu almost.
Right. Yep. Now you probably will have like there's like different levels of severity of symptoms, and it's pretty common to get like a mild headache and maybe a stomach ache for a little bit as long as it goes away, or you can rest and it goes away. That's how you can kind of tell that you're doing all right. But if there's things that aren't going away and they continue to get worse, that's kind of when you get into trouble. And I've actually one of the other intensivists that I work with actually, he did a residency somewhere in I don't remember if it was Utah or somewhere that had high altitude, and he's actually taken care of a few skiers that had full blown altitude sickness and had to wear oxygen for years after skiing.
That's pretty bad. I know we had one guy on that did 16,000 feet, and he is a mountain guy, but it was over in the Middle East, and he got it because he's like, I've never hunted at 16,000 feet before.
Right.
And so he got it, called his doctor, and his doctor's like, well, the only thing I can really do from here is you can go around camp and ask if anyone's got a little blue pill, because what you need is a dilator. Like you need to dilate your blood vessels, and your body will start to come back. And so you asked around, and sure enough, someone had some Cialis and gave him some, and he started chopping them up. The doctor's like, you only want this much. You're a young guy, blah blah blah. So he did whatever. He's like, 2 days, I was back to full health.
Well, so the dilator actually helps helps to open up your pulmonary artery too, which helps oxygenate your lungs better, obviously. Because we actually use that to treat patients that have pulmonary hypertension, like their blood vessels don't feed their lungs like they should. So
what I was going to ask you guys, like either you or the pulmonologist, is that what you say it? Pulmonary doctor? Yep. What would he say is like, I don't want to just take the pill. Like, what could I do all year long? Because I live at like 1,400 feet or 1,100 feet. I can't remember. No, my farm's at 900 feet.
Yeah.
And so it's like, what could I be doing all year long to be increasing my VO2 max?
So anything like I actually used myself, I used kettlebells a lot going into it. It's kind of like a hipster thing to do, and everybody's swinging around and doing the CrossFit.
Hey, that's okay. I go to CrossFit too.
Yeah, but it's like it is actually a good way because you're getting anaerobic activity while you're getting aerobic activity. Because if you do one or the other, it's not really like if you power lift weights, it's definitely not going to help your VO2 max. And if you run alone, it's not going to. You'll have probably better breathing techniques, and your cardiovascular will be better. So it is very important to get a higher level of cardiovascular exercise. But if you want to do both and build strength, the best way to utilize oxygen is to incorporate both of those things into your exercise program before you go.
Which is you're basically talking like high intensity full body circuit training.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
like
it's probably the best way to.
Like complex movements. So you're using like multiple big muscle groups, but then also in a short time domain. So you're really spiking your heart rate and like getting sweaty is what what we're talking about.
That's right. That's right.
So is that just the best way to train VO2 max? Is just
it is. Yeah.
Burn your lungs up at home.
And so I wrote an article about this past spring. I'll send you the link for it. Since we're talking about it, but I mean, I as far as I can find and find out, that's the best way. Now he actually did a few other things that I probably wouldn't recommend. Like he has a CPAP machine, right? And he actually used he actually reversed some of the tubing on it, and he used it as an oxygen deconcentrator at home. So he wore like a face tent mask at home and actually deconcentrated the level of oxygen that he was breathing in, and actually put his oxygen saturation. So an oxygen saturation of better than 90% is really adequate. And you really want it to be 92 to 100, somewhere in there. 92 to 99. But he actually put his oxygen saturation into the mid 80s on purpose for a couple of weeks before we went. He thinks it helped.
Oh, I'm sure it
I
does.
I think it could help because it's not the same as like people say like those tight fitting face masks that you can wear while you exercise. That just makes you breathe harder. It doesn't deconcentrate. Like you're not getting less oxygen. Like you and I are breathing 21% oxygen right now. Putting on that mask is only increasing your carbon dioxide level, or making you rebreathe carbon dioxide. It's
Which
not
is a part of
taking
it.
away, right? But it's not taking away the oxygen concentration in the room. So it's just making your lungs work harder and breathe harder. So in a sense, it could help maybe a little bit, but it doesn't really do a whole lot for you.
I don't think it's going to help do anything other than make you realize how important exhaling is to inhale.
Exactly.
Like you need to get rid of your carbon dioxide. That's like you can't just go
right.
Like you need to be blowing out almost more than you're taking in because you got to expel all your carbon dioxide or else you're really not doing anything.
Right. It's better to focus on training well and building your muscles and your cardiovascular exercise than it is to try to deprive yourself of oxygen. Now the way he did it was actually lowering the level of oxygen in the room,
which was basically like the same as sleeping in a atmospheric chamber or like the exactly. Colorado Springs. I've gone to the Olympic training centers. It's like, we got like basically apartment rooms where we can adjust the altitude.
That's exactly.
And so like we'll have our athletes sleep at 9,000 feet artificially, and then they go to Rio de Janeiro for the games at 0 feet, and they're just like high on oxygen because they're used to nothing. Yeah,
that's right.
And that's basically what he was doing, which I could see. Like I could see it help you start getting through some of those early phases of altitude adjustment.
Yeah, he really didn't have too much of a problem. You know, I mean, we all had like a little bit of it, but he, I said he's in his 60s. He did really, really well, and I think that in part it probably helped him.
So my advice is going to be good for 75% of the people out there, and it's going to suck for 25%. And there's no way around it. But as long as you aren't last, you will be fine.
Yeah, exactly.
If you're the slowest guy in your group, you're going to have an awful outcome. But if you're not the slowest guy, you'll be like, I breathe a little heavy, but we're always waiting for Tim. And, I love Tim, but we're waiting on him. And he's over there.
Yeah.
And that's usually me, depending on who we elk hunt with. And as soon as he recovers, you've been recovered for 3-4 minutes. So, you get a 2x break. Like if you needed 1 minute, you get 2 minutes because you're waiting for someone that needs 2 minutes. Well, if he like barely recovers and you start again, like he's going to be the first to redline again. Right. And so that's why I said, like, there's no way around it. Someone's going to be the slowest, no matter what, no matter how hard everyone trains. Now, maybe everyone trains like Cameron Haynes. And now it's like, nobody really needs a break because this isn't that hard compared to how we train. But let's be realistic. Most of us aren't doing that.
Yeah, man. And so that was like the beginnings of like the major things that I was always concerned about. Like the gear, like you kind of learn that as you hunt your entire life, you kind of learn what works and what doesn't. Now, obviously there's things that are specific to like, I don't deer hunt in the rain the same that I might deer hunt for elk. So you might want something different. Like you talked about getting that, the rain fly and that kind of thing. Like that stuff you're going to learn on the fly with experience. But I think there was, some important takeaway. Like the guide had a nice water filter. Like there was a spring close by the camp. So we would fill 5-gallon bags of water, and he had one of those nice like gravity buckets that held like 3 or 4 gallons. That was awesome because then we didn't have to worry about it at camp. But as far as like hiking around, like, you can bring like this gravity drain that takes forever or a pump or whatever. I used one of those Grail. I used a Grail system, like the water bottle that you just squeeze down into the cup. And that was awesome. It takes 8 seconds to push that thing down into the cup and you're good to go.
Yeah. I've seen those systems, and depending on what size you get, I mean, you can filter like a liter. Some of them are made to filter like a liter of water with one push.
Yeah.
It's the same concept as it's a filter, right? It's a charcoal or a granite filter.
Right. It's like the bottle with the filter on the bottom, and then you have like a cup insert and you just squeeze it down in there, and it's 750 mLs of water. So it's like 3/4 of a liter. And you just push it down into the cup, and 8 seconds later you have almost a whole liter of water.
I have the little MSR that I just
Yeah.
pump, and it's the same system. It just doesn't do as big of a push at once. But
Right.
it's probably a little bit smaller too to like, and it screws into my Nalgene.
Yeah.
So,
But those are things like you want to practice with and like get to know
Yeah.
before you go do that kind of stuff. So like, you know, I went through like the Sawyer systems and that kind of thing, and like didn't love them. But you know, one of the guys that I went with had like this 3-liter bag that was a gravity drain, and he was planning on putting it up the night before and stuff. And when we got there, like he'd used the thing a couple times and he hung it up and it didn't work.
yeah,
So like,
we had one guy that used his and it broke.
yeah,
And since he last used it, it was broken. So
yeah,
we had to go back to our systems. But his was a little tiny thing too, like a small, like a micro filter. Mine's like a full size backpacking filter.
that MSR one is a good system.
And I had a bag that I bought, a 6-liter bag that I could throw in, and it's just ounces. But then if you find like a good water source by camp, you could just filter water like every other day.
Yeah, yeah.
Fill up your backpack bladder, fill up that bladder, fill up an Nalgene.
Right.
Yeah.
And I think that kind of stuff is like, I think, you know, when you buy gear, I think it's important to kind of just play around with it at home. Like you don't want to be opening up a package the day before you go and be like, yeah, this thing will work, you know, because it might not be what you want to use. And maybe it's heavier or bulkier than you wanted, that kind of thing. So I think I
would strongly recommend if you're doing, maybe you can make it even more general. If you're doing anything that you haven't done before,
yeah,
try it before you go.
Yeah.
And it's as simple as like, if you've never booked a hotel, like go book a hotel, figure out how it works before you go out west and try to figure out how it works.
Yeah.
Like obviously that's an example, but like if you've never base camped, like I've base camped so many times, like I know what I need. I never test anything before I go. It was cleaned when I put it away. It worked when I put it away. I haven't touched it since. It'll be fine. But the spike camp was all new. So I tested every kind of piece of it. I set my tent up in my yard. I set my air pad up. I set everything up. I tested the water filter. You know, I've already been using the stoves, backpacking stoves for years. So I didn't test that. I know that works. But like test it out. Test it in the summer. Go on a camping trip. Like sleep in your backyard if that's what it takes. But like you said, no matter what, if you've never set up a wall tent before, that's not fun to figure out at night in the mountains.
No. And even things like, so you talked about a stove. Like I have at home when I'm like whitetail hunting all in a whole day, or like I'm backpacking in or something, I'm using like some knockoff thing you can get on Amazon. They're all right, whatever. They screw onto the top of a portable can of gas or whatever.
Yeah.
Well, what you don't know is in Colorado at elevation, if you try to light your gas, and it's like I had like the Coleman mix, like maybe it was just propane. I don't remember what the mix is, but it was Coleman gas, right? Yeah. Trying to light that doesn't light. It's not good enough.
Yeah, there's different fuel types, and it's both temperature and altitude can play a role in it. But like high altitude in the winter, like I think it's like only white gas will work.
Right. So like fortunately, like we had some Jetboil gas with us, which was fine. Like worked fine.
That works at other things, but maybe not like extreme altitude or like
right.
Extreme
so you
cold.
need to know. But that was not even. Yeah. That was not something like my stove worked great, but I had no idea that was going to be a thing when we got there. So like, we were trying to use our lighter to light it.
Yeah, like a butane lighter might not work.
Yeah, not going to work. So fortunately, we did. You know, they had the camp. Obviously, they had like a Coleman white gas stove, and they had like a little buddy heater thing and that kind of thing. There at the camp already, but like that's the kind of stuff you don't really think about or know, and those are the kinds of things you should be thinking about, because it's the little things that are gonna suck. Like if you can't make coffee in the morning because you can't light your stove, that's gonna suck.
So I hate coffee. I love caffeine. I hate the taste of coffee.
Yeah.
So I drink energy drinks all day long, like this rain.
Yeah.
Today I had 2 because it's a Monday after coming off of elk hunting, but well, I'm not backpacking like a 12-pack of pop around. And so, but I knew like if I quit, I'm going to have a headache. I'm going to have caffeine withdrawals.
Yep.
And so I just put a bottle of caffeine pills in my pack. And every time I got a little headache, I took 100 milligrams caffeine. I tried to limit it because caffeine's also a diuretic. And you don't really want to dry yourself out when you're already dehydrated.
Right. It's a diuretic and it's a vasoconstrictor. So you kind of like hit yourself with a double whammy. But if you either need to wean yourself off like a month before you go, or you just need to drink a little bit like you
More
said,
water.
when you start,
Yeah.
when you're starting to get a headache. The other thing, I guess while we're talking about a little bit about that, like the other thing that helps with altitude is just ibuprofen, because it's actually an anti-inflammatory, and that's part of what altitude does. So if you're having minor symptoms from that, ibuprofen is part of the
I don't think I had any steady state altitude problems. My brother got sick actually the morning after we spiked out for a little bit, but then he felt better. Weren't really sure what was going on. But I had short-term altitude symptoms. Like we're walking up this steep red-faced slope and I'm puffing and puffing. But, then you just take a break, eat a sandwich. Anytime we were horizontal, I hardly broke a sweat. I mean, there's days I didn't break a sweat the entire elk hunt.
Yeah.
We started high, we hunted our way down, never broke sweat.
Yeah.
We actually did that the day I hunted with the guy that was in the best shape, which is funny. It's like I'm the only guy that's ever hunted with him and not broke a sweat.
Yeah. I don't know. I don't think I had any. I didn't, other than being short of breath and some minor headaches here and there that would go away pretty quickly. I don't really think I had altitude sickness, other than I went blind in my right eye.
Like permanently?
No, I can see out of it now, and I think so. My eye had kind of was a little like itchy or whatever when we got into Colorado, and then. Without telling the entire story, like I shot my elk on the first day of our hunt.
Before your eye went blind?
Before my eye went blind, like immediately before my eye went blind. So I shot the elk, and like I went to when we were I went to fill out my tag, and I like looked at my tag, and it looked foggy, and I like, oh, my sunglasses, I got like all humidity on or something. I flipped my sunglasses up, and I was looking at the tag, and I'm like, it still doesn't look right. And I like looked at the doctor I was with, and I looked at him with my left eye. I'm like, oh, he looks good there. And I went, looked at my right eye, and I couldn't see him. Like I could tell there was a person there, just the outline of a person.
Wow, that's scary.
So he like looked in my eye, and he said that it was a sty, but the outfitter was absolutely convinced that it was altitude. He's like, make sure he drinks a lot of water. We need to come get it. Like he was like, we had I had like a Zoleo device thing that you could text with or whatever.
Oh,
and
yeah.
He was like freaking out, like, oh, he's got altitude sickness. So I don't think it was. I think it was a sty that like scratched my eyeball or something. But I don't know. Could have been altitude. It took till Friday to come back. Yeah.
That would be scary.
I kind of figured, I was like, well, I already can't see out of it, so I don't know. So I had the rest of the week, but
at least you shot yours before anything happened. How did you guys have like group wide success? Did you go 1 for 4, 4 for 4?
We were 1 for 4, but it was it was a pretty good hunt. So they said it's been harder since the burn, not because the elk population has gone down, but because the cover is harder to sneak around in.
Yeah, you get windowed easier.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure an elk could see you 200 yards coming in, stuff like that. Like you're not hiding very well in there,
Yeah.
But I paired up with a doctor every day, and the other 2 guys paired up every day. And really we heard elk every day. And I'm fairly certain only 1 out of the entire week that we were there, we actively worked a bull. The seeing them was not so great. The other 2 guys saw 5 or 6 bulls, 4 or 5 cows, and then 1 really big bull. And they almost shot a bull that was bigger than mine. They got, I think, 50 yards from it, and then it ended up wind changed direction, and he took his cows. But they said he was a lot. There was a 300, like a 350 running around.
Yeah.
And they said it was probably that bull from what I would guess their description. But we did get to work bulls pretty much every day, and we saw my bull, and there was another 6x6 with my bull, and then like a smaller 4x4, and we actually kicked that one out of a bed. we were like kind of working along a ridge line where we had heard bulls in the morning, and there was a creek, and I could see a wallow across the other side of this creek. And I remember being like, took a step across the creek, and I was like, I smell one. And the doc was like, how could you smell one? The wind's blowing the other direction. I'm like, I'm telling you, I smell an elk. You know, I have that like goat urine.
Oh,
you know,
they smell strong.
Yeah. And I remember being like, I'm telling you, I smell an elk, dude. And he's like, I don't know. And he took another step, and the bull jumped up. It was 35 yards away. Bull jumped
really?
up and took off the ridge. But yeah, it was a good hunt, man. Like the morning I killed, we went up to a glassing spot and really didn't have to go too far because there were elk. My dog's freaking out right now. There were elk bugling all over the place. So we kind of like picked one and started working in that direction, and definitely definitely more of a herd bull. Yeah. He was like kind of working. You could hear him get closer and then get further away. Like he was kind of rounding the cows down or something.
Right.
And, you know, we kind of let him go, and we could hear satellite bulls would like work one way and he'd work the other way. And so you kind of like seesaw calling them almost. So we just kept working out the ridgeline just to learn more about the area. And we stayed kind of just above or just inside the timberline. And, we got to a small open meadow, and there was a wallow in the middle of it. Looked like it hadn't been used maybe for a couple days. But I called at the edge of this meadow, like I bugled, and just got like a small bugle back. Nothing, you know, just a little, like it was later morning. I think it was like 8:30 or 9 o'clock. And it was pretty close. So we're like, oh, you know, they're bedded. We have plenty of terrain here. There's another kind of, it wasn't really a meadow down below, but it looked like a break in like the tree line. And I will kind of like, I didn't really want to go into it because I felt like it was too close to where this elk was. And the doc was like, no, he's further than you think. And I'm like, oh, I don't know. And we ended up, I was going to call the bull in for him, and the thermals were working uphill. So he's like, we're going to get down along the edge. So we went down along the edge of this. It was like a 50, maybe 70 yard wide opening in the woods. And I got down low, and he was above me. And I put my pack down, knocked an arrow, and I bugled. And this thing just like, no more snot bugle. This thing like full out. And he came running out of the other side of the woods. Like I could see him immediately, just charging out the other side of this opening with another bull behind him, all pissed off, like hair up, like coming, you know. And he got to the edge of the thing and slowed down a little bit, but still was like stiff leg stomping across. But he did not have any intention on circling me. He was coming, like he was just on a line.
Okay, so he forgot all about playing the wind and coming in smart. He just came straight to you.
He was like, nobody's ever been down here before, you know. And he just like, I drew my bow, and I'm like, he's gonna be at 25 yards. And because he was coming straight at me, I'm like, I have to shoot him, and I have to take a frontal shot.
Yeah.
So I wanted him to get pretty close. But he got to like 30 yards, and then he was like, oh, something's not. But then you could tell he was like, did the stop and like, something's not right. And the other one was like, what are you waiting for? Like, you could see him in the back, like, come on, you know. And I felt like body language wise, like I've never seen an elk in a hunting situation before. So I was like, he looked like, if I was thinking that's a whitetail, he's about to peace out, you know. So I settled my pin and pulled the trigger, and he was uphill, like it was just a slight angle uphill, and I ended up hitting him square where you're supposed, like I hit him through the hole in the chest, but the arrow was kind of like angled upwards, so it ended up hitting him behind the shoulder blades in his spine. Like it went through the hole in his chest and hit him in the spine, and he dropped over.
Interesting.
And he was like squirting blood, you know. I was like, okay, well, at least like it's a lethal, like it's definitely a lethal hit, but you could like, there was a 20-inch oak tree, or no, I guess it's not an oak tree, probably whatever, aspen or whatever, the Quakies. There was like a 20-inch tree laying next to him, and he was picking that thing up with his antlers, just like like it was nothing. I'm like, holy crap. So I ended up shooting another arrow at him, and because he was throwing his head around so much, his antlers caught it, and the arrow went who knows where. And then I shot him through the lungs, and then he died pretty quick after that. But it was a really cool hunt. But then, you know, I'm like, oh man, it's the first day, so I did get to, you know, call and do all that, because the doc I was with he's pretty good with like making cow sounds and stuff, but he didn't really feel super comfortable bugling and stuff like that. So I got to call for him for the rest of the week. I was a little unbalanced with the hiking with my eyeball like that, but it was a really great experience. But yeah,
there you go. Yeah, I mean,
that guy.
I would love to shoot one on the first day and then not have to bring my bow every day, because I'm going to be out there anyway. It's whether I'm calling for someone else, which half the time I got to call for them anyway and carry my bow. At least if I shoot one on the first day, I can leave my bow at home and just call.
Yeah.
Just chill in the back of the line and walk
I think
around.
one of the things that we ended up doing wrong is, like, every morning there were still elk where we started hearing them, but by the second or third time we were calling at them, they were a little bit further away the next time. And I think we could have just thought of that and hopped out in front of them instead of chasing them from behind every morning. I think that would have been a better idea. Because once we got out to an area there was a strip that wasn't burned, and it was full of elk. Like, there were beds everywhere. New every day there was like new spots where they were fighting, and you would hear them bugling there every morning. And that's actually where they ended up having the encounter with the bigger bull.
Oh, nice.
So it was a really great experience. But like I said, we ended up saving a lot of time because of it being a drop camp, and you could kind of focus on some other things like, hey, what don't I know about going west? Like all the simple stuff that we were talking about, like altitude and your gear and that kind of thing. So
awesome.
But yeah, the other thing that I thought was pretty cool was it is a draw unit. It's not I think guaranteed it's 2 points. I can't remember. I saw it on Go Hunt. It's either 1 or 2 points, but it did. I think that also helped drastically decrease the amount of pressure that's there, because everybody's like, oh, I'm going to do the over the counter thing, because that's been, you know, popular for a while now, you know.
Yeah, everyone does that as a backup choice.
Yeah. And then, you know, in the last, basically, since Meat Eater has really become popular, and, you know, people just want to do more of it. So, over the counter is just easy for everybody because you don't have to think about it. But I think that does help to decrease the amount of pressure, not only because you have to draw, but because people aren't actively seeking those units all the time, like people from the East anyway.
Yeah, no, that's very true. Very true. So after the entire experience, you got any plans to go back? Got any plans to do it all again?
Yeah. I think the next thing I'll probably do is I have like I'll have 5 points for antelope in Wyoming, so I'm I could probably draw a pretty good tag for that. And then I'll put in for I'll buy some points for Wyoming this year. One of my other buddies been saving up for Wyoming elk for a while now, so I'll do that, and probably plan to hunt Colorado again in 25. Next year, I'm planning to do like mule deer in Nebraska. So
nice. Yeah, that sounds like a couple of fun trips coming up. So good chance to keep going west, keep building experience.
Yeah,
keep bringing animals home.
Yeah, this year's a little different. My wife picked up doing something different for her career, and we have a foreign exchange student this year. So I'm gonna be a full blown PA whitetail nut this year.
Yeah, there's nothing wrong with that either, though.
No, I'm excited. It should be a good season. So
cool. Well, I wish you the best this fall and on all those trips coming up. Notice looking down, we're a little over an hour already, just like that, wrapped up. 2 elk stories, and time flies when you talk about elk hunting. So
yeah, man.
But I'm glad we finally got to do this. I had to reschedule, but I'm glad we got you on the podcast. Great episode talking about kind of just what it's like to head west from the flatlands of America.
Yeah, thanks for having me, man. Appreciate it.
Anytime. Yeah, thanks for being here, Aaron. We'll have to do another one after your next Western trip.
Sounds good, buddy.
So, awesome. Well, thanks for being here again, and thank you for listening, folks. Boom. That easy.
Sweet.
Thank you. Yeah.
That was pretty good.
Yeah, time. I mean, literally every time I do this, time just flies. So we start talking about like just hunting and stories.